everybody. I just wanted to come up here real quick to say hi. My name is Maggie Fonseca. I'm the director for the Kelly ECC, and I want to give a big shout out to some of our staff members who are here and helped coordinate, as well as Sam. This is going to be a great opportunity for all of you in the community to hear from the candidates, with specifically around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we're really excited to host, and I heard that there was one other session that's already been hosted last week and others to come, so you all have a very busy week or next couple of weeks. But good luck with everything. We're very excited to hear from you today, so thank you for coming out and being a part of this community.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Okay, so hopefully everyone's grabbed pizza, grabbed some drinks. I'm going to start off and introduce myself. My name is Alexi Mendoza. I am the co-chair of SAB, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, my name is Emmy. I'm also the co-chair for SAB, and my pronouns are also she, her. And
Can I ask a question?
yeah, so we're going to first start off with a little icebreaker. You can talk to the people next to you about what your favorite spring activity is.
Alrighty, guys, let's come back. Okay, so for this first portion of the forum, it's going to be a Q&A, and we're going to ask the candidates 2 questions, and they must respond within 2 minutes, beginning with the president candidates. Yeah, give it up. Come on. Alrighty. Do you guys want to go quickly introduce yourselves and your pronouns?
Hi, my name is Andal Schroeder, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hi everyone, I'm Lydia Brahanu. I'm a 3rd year and I use she, her pronouns.
Hi everyone, Nandana Jaydeep, she, her pronouns, also 3rd year.
Can you get to this side?
This one?
Yeah.
And then for vice president candidates.
My name is Jenna Miller. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a 3rd year.
Hi everyone, my name is Peyton Sachs. I am a junior, and I also use she, her pronouns.
Hello everyone, my name is Sonal Berg. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a sophomore here at UW.
Hello, my name is Colin Wagner. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a sophomore as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Nebiat Marcos, and I'm a 3rd year here at UW. I use she, her pronouns.
Hello, my name is Valeria Perez. I'm a 3rd year, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hi everyone, my name is Valeria Redondo. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also a 2nd year.
Alrighty, so first question. What is one goal or vision you hope to implement in your term as ASU Dub president that will leave a positive impact on the UW campus culture and student experience? And these should be working.
Yeah, so I really want to, one of my main visions is to completely rethink the student experience and what that can look like outside of the classroom, because post-pandemic we're really seeing a need to innovate new ways of learning as like outside of lecture halls. And for that, one of my best experiences in college has been with the STEM Alternative Spring Break program at the Selly Center, which connects students, usually STEM students, with indigenous communities. So I went to the Yakima Nation for 2 years during spring break and taught students there, as well as mentored a group of middle school students over the course of a year. And the purpose of this was to conduct outreach and bridge the gap between these underrepresented communities and higher education, but instead it really taught me a lot. It was a transformative experience for me, and I really want to take these experiences, preserve them on campus, and innovate new things. Like ASUW used to run the experimental college, which was discontinued several years ago, and I want to look into these past programs as well as assess present programs, how we can expand them, and truly innovate a future for UW. One of my other priorities is research. I really want to protect undergraduate research and make it more accessible to students outside of just STEM. And yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, I love this question, thank you. So in terms of campus culture and student experience, I view those things as two different things. So in terms of campus culture, as ASUW president, I'd like to begin my term in the summer by re-examining and creating various ASUW legacy events. And one ASUW legacy event I'd like to re-examine is the RSO Leadership Summit that we host yearly. I'd like to begin by implementing this quarterly, so once a quarter, and the RSO Leadership Summit would entail basic foundations of what it means to be an RSO leader. So like, what is the importance of a constitution and bylaws? How can an RSO leader make every event accessible and what that means? As well as just being a place for RSO leaders to be able to come together, bounce ideas off one another, and be a space for collaboration. And I'd like to create an initiative for students to actually come to this event. So making an ASUW certification that has a student's name and saying that they completed this training, and then allowing them to gain certain ASUW benefits that come with this training. Additionally, I'd like to look into how ASUW can highlight like student leaders and student creators, student entrepreneurs, and their brands. And this would all start with our legacy event, like maker series that we host all the time. So just making sure that ASUW is prioritizing students and student brands and making sure they are the first people we contact in terms of booths and places for them to like just show off their talents and their creativeness. And in terms of student experience, I think the first thing that came to mind for me was how finances is kind of the hardest thing for students to navigate in college. So I'd like to begin by just attempting to lower the costs of campus life, whether that be transportation, housing, or food costs. So yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for being here. Again, wonderful question. Couple of ideas, but the main one that I want to focus on is, again, a campus-wide like leadership summit, not just for RSOs, but have ASUW there, have Greek life there, have every single element of UW present there as a sort of like collective like conversation in a sense where we bounce ideas off of each other and just talk about like what makes us Huskies in general. In terms of like campus culture, when we're all there together having a conversation, we know like, I know what your priorities are, you know what my priorities are, and we can discuss potential solutions on how we want to work together. We can even like discuss ideas for event collaboration. And as like the primary, if elected, the ASUW president would be the primary lobbyist for the UW student body essentially. So having these spaces be a time where you discuss what your concerns are, what are the diverse issues affecting the student body would be a great time for the OGR and the president to take those things and lobby for them at like the administrative level, but even like the state level. But again, like how are we going to incentivize all these RSOs and campus communities to come to these events? So that's something that SAP actually inspired me with this idea. It's that make it a funding opportunity. So many minority groups and diversity-based RSOs don't have funding to host events on campus. Come to these bi-quarterly summits, attend like 3 of them, and ASUW can help fund your next big campus event. So these are things where we are incentivizing them to come to us. Like this way, we are more informed when we lobby for things, and they are more involved in that process, and they're also getting an incentive to be there and funding to make their beautiful like events more elaborate and showcase their cultures on campus and make the student experience just like enhance it in general. But yeah, that's my idea. Thank you.
Great answers. Okay, we're gonna move on to the second one, which is how do you plan on staying up to date and present with needs and concerns of student communities and ensure all voices are being heard? And this question was created by the D Center. Let's start back over here.
So I think the key to this is building trust with student communities on campus. And what this looks like is really prioritizing engaging with first-year students by attending FIGs, hosting a whole series of dog days events, and making ASUW a really prominent part of first-year orientation, as well as in my role as a speaker of Student Senate, I've really expanded outreach to the protected seats that we have with various RSOs on campus. Also, I would really like to host an ASUW open house and take the ASUW office space and really make it more accessible to students, more welcoming, and make the front desk somewhere where any student can come in with concerns or just questions or ideas. And another thing I want to do to build trust is track federal policies and really analyze them and present them in a very accessible way on the ASUW website, because UW can often be slow to respond and students skip over their emails. They don't really update websites, but where UW is slow to respond, I think ASUW can step in. And by building trust, I think student communities on campus will come to us with their ideas and initiatives so we can support them. On top of that, I'm in electrical engineering, and my department has a newly established DEI committee, and with student reps on it, it really bridges the gap between students and faculty, so students really feel like they're being heard, and I want to ensure that as many departments on campus as possible have this opportunity as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I really enjoyed this question because it's something that I've been working on a lot as the current director of diversity at ASUW. And in the beginning of the year, this was kind of like the first thing that I was thinking, like, how can I get people to trust me and come to me with their concerns? So I took the initiative of reaching out to a member of the ECC, actually in this room, Cass, and I just asked her, like, hey, can I receive the ECC list of registered RSOs and their contact information? And I kind of just started by doing that and reaching out to those RSOs, introducing who I am, my purpose, and the reason I'm even in ASUW and what my role entails and how I can help them. And I think through that, I just was able to create a lot of bonds and connections with RSO leaders and just be able to be an open ear for their concerns. And throughout the year, I had RSO leaders emailing me saying, like, hey, I have XYZ problem, whether it be an internal problem within their board and general just like executive needs, or that be just like, hey, how can I help these relative like partners within their RSOs and kind of go over certain concerns and kind of just be proactive in those responses. And I think something that has really helped me with staying up to date and present on student concerns is obviously reaching out to my committee, the Joint Commissions Committee, which is comprised of the Identity and Advocacy Commissions of UW, and just hearing their stories and what's going on in their communities within their constituents has helped me a lot. But also I'm the current chair of the UW Student-Facing Diversity Council. With Ricky Hall just established 5 new councils that just kind of represent the broader UW area, and that council is meant to just kind of round up metrics regarding student concerns and student numbers, regarding DEI efforts and how the administration can then put forth better initiatives and programs, and that has helped me a lot with staying up to date. And I think as ASUW president, just reaching out to all my channels, being consistent, being reliable, and making sure I'm making the effort to be that person to reach out and not only waiting for people to reach out to me. So thank you.
Again, yeah, thank you for this question. question. I have so many ideas written down, but I guess my primary approach would really just be like leveraging my experience so far. So I serve as the WSA VP of Diversity, so the Washington Student Association, which is the largest student coalition in Washington State. It has like all of the public universities in Washington and some community colleges as well. And something that I worked on this year is my role is to be primarily like the DEI programming consultant. So I make sure I work with all of these different universities, and we actually adopted the first statewide DEI&B statement for students this year. And I helped craft that with the help of all of these other wonderful universities. And I think that's something that I would do within our campus community if I was elected president. And basically, all student emails I think are so important because every student receives them. If we include like polls, surveys, things that students want to fill out so that we actually know what their concerns are, what's affecting them, along with like summits, like I mentioned earlier, where like town halls are a great way for us to put ourselves out there, but engagement with town halls has usually been low. So stepping outside the hub, us as leaders can go to them, we can go to their RSOs and listen to their concerns, and also maybe incentivize them to come to us at ASUW. Our open public meetings can have like free food and things that would make them want to like come work with us, because it's hard to like incentivize RSOs if ASUW has historically not been actively reaching out to them. And yeah, that's like my primary goal within this position. And also, as president, you have the network. You really have the ability to tap in with almost every council on campus, and I think that's what I would focus on. So polling, surveys, making sure you reach out to them, leveraging my experience, and just actively being proactive and just being a person that you can communicate to. Even ASUW marketing is something that can be streamlined. I worked on streamlining Office of Communications this year in my role as Vice President, and that's something that I actively want to work towards next year. So like communication with ASUW is a two-way street and not a one-way street, because it's so much harder to know and accomplish your goals when you don't publicize them. So accountability is also another big factor. But yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you guys for your responses. Now we're going to open up to the floor if anyone has any questions for the ASUW president position. There's also going to be time later in the second half of the forum for you guys to talk to them personally if you don't want to ask right now. Awesome. Okay, we'll move on to Vice President.
All right, the first question we have for the vice president candidates is, advocating for various communities will require compromises. How will these compromises support the tangible goals of student advocates and not let the administration dismiss the goals?
Hi, thank you so much. So in advocating for various communities, I think it's incredibly important that we establish communication really, really early. So for me, that means that I want to connect with our Joint Admissions Committee. So that's a collection of all of our diversity committees within ASUW. So I want to establish that line of communication so that I can work with them and with our Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity Student Advisory Board, so I can really learn about student issues and advocate for them properly on a federal level and a statewide level. In addition, I really want to partner with our Office of Government Relations in ASUW, which is our big lobbying branch. And I want to speak to our Director of Legislative Affairs, and I want to make sure that they are also reaching out to these communities, because the only way in which we can properly defend and go off of these points and student advocates and support student advocacy is to really know what the points are in the first place and to really understand them on an individual level, because we can't understand what every community needs and what every community needs from us. We at the ASUW, I am committed to making sure that I am telling your stories and I am being the voice for you. That is one of my biggest priorities, is making sure that I don't stand down from a challenge. I've done canvassing work. I know how hard it can be when you're told no over and over again, or when you're screamed at and sworn at and threatened. I understand that that is all an extremely hard part of this process, but I am committed to keeping in my thoughts your policies and your priorities, and I intend to fight for them with everything that I have.
I love this question because I believe that compromise is not about watering down different opinions and voices, but it's about building spaces and coalitions that are strong enough to protect those voices. Thus, I want to create a task force with not only our Joint Commissions Committee, but also OMA&D, SAB, other ECC RSOs that are registered, to build a collective community, because I truly am only one person, so my perspective does not reach all the other perspectives that there are in this world. And with more perspective, there's power in numbers. So compromise is about being strategic. It's not just about trade-offs and like you get this and I get that, but it's about being able to bring people to the table, but not only have them at that table, but be involved from the get-go and continue to go forward with that. And that means defining our goals tangibly. So from the very beginning of the summer, not only involving all of our groups across campus that should be included within this task force or committee, however you deem to call it, but deciding what our core values are and what our non-negotiables are, because admin, there are going to be some things that they're going to try to push back at. So what are the core principles that we are not going to say no to? And that, when it is important to push forward, but push back, also to rally our students. Again, I really value power in the people. Democracy is a huge value of mine. And so I believe that if we are able to push as a student body, we're going to be able to advocate for wider student groups. Thank you.
Alrighty, so actually I am a human resources management major and I currently serve as the ASUW personnel director, so compromising is a huge part of my job. Alongside this, I'm actually a diversity and human rights minor, so I have taken the initiative to learn about different communities here on campus, the communities that you guys come from. And an example of this would be when I took CHID 230, which is Introduction to Disability Studies. The starter question to this was, have you had any accessibility issues here on campus? And my first answer was like, no. But then I thought back to a course that I took my freshman year, and a student had encountered me. She was worried about our Friday quiz section, which was in a hall that was not accessible. No ramps and no elevators. She was anxious. She wanted me to come with her to talk to the professor. Can we get to a solution? I said, of course. And that in itself should never be a problem. Our students should be feeling a certain way when it comes to their education. So, having compromises on how we can support our student body is extremely important, but it starts with learning about these communities and learning from the communities that you don't necessarily come from. I come from marginalized communities, but that's not enough, and that's why I took the initiative to learn about the other communities that we have here on campus. And alongside that, compromises would be bringing them in. Something that's very underutilized would be our board meetings, which are set from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. every Thursday. You guys can come in. You can use public forum to speak your truth, so we can hear the problems that we need to address directly. And from there, we can have one-on-one conversations. You can set up office hours with me and the rest of the board of directors and any other commission that represents you in your underserved community. We can tackle this by having the one-on-one conversation that we need to have in the first place. That is how we get to an effective solution, and that is how we implement effective solutions in the first place. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Dealing with administration, it can be a tedious task. It can be really frustrating, as many of you probably know. And I believe that when they attempt to dismiss these important goals of student advocates, instead of saying we tried our best and leaving it at that, we will take this dismissal and turn it into sometimes public information. In doing so, we will state that we won't accept this dismissal. This will not only hold the administration accountable, but it will hold us accountable as well. And I have a strong background in appealing. I know that's also a very tedious task that can take multiple tries over and over again. It's really hard. But I, as vice president, would appeal as many times to be able to advocate for students in underserved communities that have needs that need to be met. And I also understand that not everyone is comfortable dealing with administration and dealing with these powerful figures that can seem so intimidating. And I want to create a team here at UW that will go forth with passion and strive for a better community. And I want everyone feel safe knowing that we will be there for them and we will get these goals met, whether it's coming to a compromise that everyone feels comfortable with or coming to the solution that they originally wanted. Thank you.
All right, the next question is, how do you plan to allocate ASUW resources to support diverse student communities, particularly those who may have been underserved, in a way that is equitable and accessible?
So in making ASUW resources equitable and accessible, I think that needs to be the bedrock principle, our foundation of what we're doing when we think about expanding ASUW resources. I know that for me and a lot of my other candidates here, that's one of the platform policies that I really want to enforce, is I want to create more accessibility within the ASUW in general. And in doing so, I really want to work with our Director of Diversity Efforts, and for UW in Bloom, that is our amazing Taylor, and also the Director of Community Relations, which also is in UW in Bloom, is Tanya. And I want to work with them so that we can encapsulate as many communities as possible. Like I had talked about before, I want to really work with our diversity commissions. And so that'll be through partly the Director of Diversity Efforts so that we can combine our knowledge and hopefully express what we want to for as many communities as possible. I also really want to make sure that I'm connecting with the resource centers. So if that is the D Center or the Q Center or the Office of Inclusive Design, so that when we are trying to promote resources for ASUW, we're doing so in an equitable and accessible way. So if that means more written materials or more verbal communication or more online outreach, I want to hear from those communities to hear what we need to be doing in order to serve all of UW equally. Because in the end, we, as VP, I am beholden to student voices and to your concerns, because ASUW is funded by the student activities fee, which is paid for by students. So we are beholden to you, and I want to hear from you, and I want to be direct with that. And ASUW resources are something that not only the most lucky students who just happen to know what ASUW is and what we can do should have, but to all of our amazing diverse UW community. Thank you.
I love this question again, but I also want to mention that I think intentional outreach to different student groups is really important. As in history and ASUW, we have waited for groups to come to us rather than going to them. And resources specifically, people have had to search for them, look for them, and then navigate them on their own. Tomorrow, there's actually the RSO Leadership Summit, so I implore you all to go in the Hub Lyceum from 4 to 7. But there are workshops so we can help walk people through how to go through our funding process. But again, that's just like a one-off event. So actually coming into spaces that we aren't always in as ASUW and offering those resources in safe zones for students, I believe is super important. We want to make sure that not only by being present, we don't want to assume what people need. We want to invite them to that space to be able to actually get that information from them. Again, that would go back to that task force that I mentioned. Actually inviting people to feel the freedom and space to share what they need in a safe zone, rather than having to have them come and approach us. We can invite them to a space where not only are they in a community of other people that also need resources and support to help provide that community support from one another, but also allow people to share some space and really be able to be a part of a conversation rather than me being like, here's a resource, and not showing you how to work them and go through them. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
All right, so I think the starting point is to learn about the communities that are underserved and underrepresented. I can sit here and say I come from a marginalized community, I come from an underrepresented community, underserved community, but that doesn't cover it all. We have 48,000 students here at the UW. I won't know everything about every single community here on campus, but I will take the initiative to learn. And alongside that, there is extreme support through the ASUW with all of our different diverse entities and commissions that serve and advocate for the underserved and underrepresented communities. And something that isn't very broadcasted is those public office hours. You guys can come in and we can allow you to know that you can come in and speak. There's 2 hours allocated for the public to come in and speak to certain commissions and entities, also board of directors, about things that are on their mind. For example, I wish I knew last year about the Office of Inclusive Design and the Student Disability Commission here at the ASUW, because that student who felt like they weren't being heard, that they were being underrepresented, could have spoke during those office hours. They could have received that help. They could have been able to. But it lacks because of the fact that ASUW leadership, specifically the executive board, is lacking in allowing you to know about the resources that we offer, those public office hours that you guys can utilize as well. We need to broadcast those to the highest extent because our directors and assistant directors are working tremendously, and they are putting in the work to be there for you. But it is impossible if it's not broadcasted, and that would be through our Office of Communications to enhance the advertising and also the marketing of all of these resources that are available to you. We have the resources, but we must make it clear how people can approach them, how people can access them, and that will be through the marketing and the advertising. Thank you.
I think the biggest obstacle that comes to this question has to do with communication and accessibility. I think that one thing we lack, and other candidates have already said this, at the UW is communicating about these resources we have. And they're wonderful, we have so many, but it feels like a lot of the time we just have people sitting around in offices waiting for people to come to them. And the students that are out in the dorms, living off campus, wherever, they don't know about these resources. They don't know how to get to these offices. They don't know about these resources. So what we need to do regarding communication is find a medium that works where we can communicate with these students and outreach to them, not just dumping emails, maybe not just putting something at the bottom of an email. We need specific forms of communication, whether that's physical, online, over the phone, whatever, that can reach students, and we need to keep trying because I believe in trial and error. Sometimes you're not going to get it the first time, but we shouldn't just give up and say, all right, we're just going to keep sitting in our offices waiting for people to come in and use these wonderful resources. We're going to keep outreaching until we can find people to come in and benefit from these and build this beautiful, diverse community that we have awaiting us. Thank you.
Alrighty, and now we're going to move on to the Director of Diversity Efforts, which we have Val from the Q Center, who will be asking these questions.
Hello everyone, I'm Val. I use she, they pronouns. I'm the Deputy Director of the Q Center, and for those of you that are unfamiliar, the Q Center is the LGBTQ community, cultural space, and resource center on the UW Seattle campus. We're located in the Hub 315, so come visit us Monday through Thursday, 11 to 4. All right, and I'll get to our questions for Director of Diversity Effort candidates. So first question, why is diversity important to you? How will you advocate for the importance of diversity and diversity programs to the rest of the board? And this question is from OMA&D Sam.
All right, hi everyone, my name is Nebia once again. I would like to begin by saying I think inclusivity is best implemented by stepping outside of our own identities and considering those experiences, those subjective experiences of those around us, because it's impossible for one person to understand the tons of different intersecting identities that are all around us. But yeah, I do think this is a great question, and I think an initiative we can take to begin this process is by conducting research about the communities that we have on campus, and all communities in general, as well as talking to our neighbors directly. Something I'd like to share is that the Director of Diversity Efforts chairs the Joint Commissions Committee, also known as the JCC, and I have sat on this committee for the last 2 years within my time in the Office of International Student Advocacy, as well as the Black Student Commission. What I've learned is that by being intentional in my listening skills to my peers, I can understand the different initiatives and concerns of the commissions around me. In GCC, 15 different commissions and advocacy groups come together weekly to discuss their needs. And I've learned from entities such as the Student Disability Commission and the Office of Inclusive Design that easy implementations can make dramatic differences, such as alt text descriptions on Instagram posts, such as cart captioning being available at events, and as well as digital documents being shared internally and externally in an accessible manner. In my position, I also serve as co-chair and coordinating council representative of the UW Student and Student-Facing Entity Diversity Council. And here I've learned that I can really learn a lot just from listening, once again. I can learn a lot about equity in different contexts and apply that and relay these concerns forward in my role. Thank you.
As Director of Diversity Efforts, my responsibility is to be aware of all student communities, especially those I may not personally identify with. My first priority will be to actively engage with as many communities as possible by attending events, visiting identity-based offices, and having open conversations with students. I want to be approachable and accessible not just to students on leadership, but to every Husky across campus. As for student communities that I do not identify with, I will hold myself accountable and educate myself on their community and the issues that they face in order to know how to approach these issues with a concrete and sustainable solution. And I want to assure you that my understanding of educating is not a simple Google search. It's through presence, active listening, and continuous engagement, not just surface-level research. I am not unfamiliar with advocating for members of my community and members of another community. Lobbying at the state capitol for this year's entire legislative agenda had policies that addressed multiple communities that I wasn't a part of. This included undocumented students, student caregivers, sexual assault victims, people who struggle with mental health, and students who have housing or food insecurity. Even if their struggles weren't mine, I fought for them like they were, and I can assure you that I will carry out the same determination in this role. Thank you.
Well, I think diversity is important to me because it is centerfold to my existence here. As a first-generation woman of color, and in the fields that I'm navigating male-dominated spaces. Human rights is my minor, Latin American Caribbean studies as well. It is part of every element of my existence here, and I wouldn't be here without it. But also, it's not just a box that can be checked or a quota to be filled. It's a mentality. And it's a culture that we need to foster here at UW, and I think it's important that we as the board of directors understand that, and that we hold each other accountable when it comes to that. And part of my job as a director of diversity affairs is researching, assessing, and acting on when diversity is not being included, when it's not being considered, and really talking and holding the board of directors accountable to those promises and to the fabric of UW and the culture that we've created here. And I think also kind of having that open transparency on where we might be failing and how we can fix those failures in an effective and collaborative manner.
Thank you for those responses. And for question 2, how will you ensure equitable access and attention is provided to student communities you may not be aware of or personally identify with? And this is from the D Center.
Thank you for this question. I'd like to begin by reiterating my past points. I believe that directly communicating with the communities that we want to serve is vital. I would do this as Director of Diversity Efforts by, 1, being very active in the Student Senate that we have since they formed the official student opinion on campus. I think that not only being attentive and engaged in this space is important, but also inviting my constituents, reaching out to commission directors to make sure their constituents are aware of this spot on campus, so that Senate is a truly representative opinion of all students. I also would like to set up quarterly one-on-one meetings with my commission directors and advocacy entity leaders, because their role is to be representative of their student concerns and needs. It would be impossible for me as one person to be a master of all of the student concerns on campus because of all the intersecting identities and experiences that students feel every single day. What I do know is that in my own experience, I felt my own sense of imposter syndrome and exclusion as a freshman here, as a Black woman here at our predominantly white institution. I've definitely felt my sense of isolation. And the way that I overcame this is by reaching out and going out into my community and getting involved with RSOs on campus. This completely transformed my experience at the UW, and I think that in my experience as a Black student, I had to go out and find these spaces, and I'd love to be able to provide these student communities with as many resources as possible, and doing that through like the ladder of ASUW hierarchy so that everybody is being adequately served.
So first and foremost, I want to say that diversity is personal to me because I come from these communities. I navigate barriers every day that affect my sense of belonging and limit my potential here at UW. Growing up in a town that celebrated culture and identity, I came to a university that prides itself and markets on diversity, but too often fails to fully support its students. If UW wants to grow its diverse population, it must ensure that support systems are visible, accessible, and effective for an equitable experience here at UW. Not all students know about UW resources and how to take advantage of them. Until last year, I personally didn't know how much Leadership Without Borders, or EOP, could help make my life as a student much easier. As director, I will ensure that students from every community are informed, empowered, and connected to what they need to succeed. With optimized engagement from these resources, I could obtain feedback for the improvement of them or even the need to create new programs. This is not my first time in the role of advocating for another community I wasn't part of. Lobbying at Olympia, again, for policies that affect me and for policies that don't is important because I'm willing to be that voice for students who aren't able to speak up. I can promise you my absolute determination and passion in this role, and confidently say that I will not take no for an answer because resources for an equitable experience here at the UW are the bare minimum, and I want to do greater than the bare minimum. I don't just want us to be here comfortably, I want everyone from all communities to thrive and flourish because they can. I also plan to advocate on the board by bringing real student voices into the room. I'll personally collect student testimony on diversity-related barriers and present them directly to the board. There has been student testimony done at the state level and it has proven to be effective, so why can't we do it at the university level? Hearing diversity issues from the people themselves is stronger than reading an email, and it will hold members of the board accountable.
I had an amazing opportunity to act as a research fellow with disability studies in the D Center. And one thing I learned most importantly is you have to reach beyond data and statistics and generalized statements on what communities are going through and understand their personalized experiences, what they are feeling as a community, and what they feel is the most important. And I think it's also in terms of not just putting a Band-Aid over an open wound, you need to go to the root of the problem. And if that problem is the institutions, then you need to target the institutions themselves. And I think that's an important role as the Director of Diversity Efforts and as the Board of Directors to act as liaison to the community. You are voted in by the community, and it's our job to hold the institutions that we work for accountable. Especially during these really trying times, we're facing budget cuts, we're facing federal attacks. We, more than ever, need to stand as a united front against these attacks and against the institution if we must.
Do we have time for 5 minutes or for the audience?
Yeah, we can ask if people want.
Does anyone in the audience have questions for the candidates? Yeah?
Okay, specifically for the Director of Diversity Efforts position, I was wondering if there's any specific RSO experience that really is going to help inform your fulfilling of this role.
That's a great question. So a lot of my, the ability that I've had to be a strong advocate for the Black community in my commission this year has come from the experience I had last year in RSO work. I began getting involved in RSOs my freshman year, and those were in minor executive positions, and last year, minor executive positions as well as starting the East African Student Association with a few of my friends in order to just add one more safe space on campus for all students. My sophomore year, last year, I was vice president of Retro Revolutionary Poets, and I served as co-president of the East African Student Association that year. And what I learned is, well, one, how valuable the ECC is to us, because I spent so much time here. We had weekly and monthly events scheduled here without missing a month, and it was just, it really has a safe space in my heart. And I would also say that these experiences have, one, let me know how essential these event spaces on campus are, but have also prepared me to understand student needs and take that to a higher level as I move forward in my experiences.
actually a part of the RSO called Purple Group, and in Purple Group, it's basically a student alliance for undocumented students. And I've learned a lot in that RSO because we've done a lot of Know Your Rights workshops. We've done a lot of WASPA workshop because, as you know, undocumented students can't fill out FAFSA. They have to fill out WASPA. Also, I'm also in the club, the RSO called Youth of Applied Analytics, and you might question like why this is relevant, but I actually have a background in informatics and data science, and in that RSO, I'm actually working on a project right now where we're comparing two data sets, one from 2015 and another from 2018, where the peak of the Affordable Care Act in 2015, and then the peak of the negative effects of the revocation of the Affordable Care Act in 2018, and we're comparing data sets and health outcomes to see if the revocation of the Affordable Care Act had negative effects, and it clearly did, and that we're going to actually present those to public health officials. And I want to actually leverage my technical background in data science in order to inform members of the community and UW about these issues through numbers.
I think there's two RSO experiences that really have kind of informed my skill set. One of them is Honors Peer Mentoring Program through the Honors Interdisciplinary Program, which has really taught me how to act as an open ear for my mentees and how to be there in supportive ways that's not overbearing, but that allows them to speak in these spaces and kind of advocate for their concerns, and so I know how to help them in an effective way that's not stepping over their boundaries and over their needs. I also just recently started working with HOPE, which is Huskies for Opportunities in Prison Education. I really encourage everyone to look them up, they're fantastic. But part of their work is directly advocating with communities and not assuming their needs and their concerns, but instead listening for them and creating those spaces they can advocate to students in an effective way and use their own voice and use their own skill sets to advocate for their concerns, and they act and I act as an extension of that for them.
We have time for one more question for the candidates from the audience, if anyone has a question they want to ask. Yeah? Oh, wait. Let me pass you the mic. There you go. Thank you.
So with diversity efforts, something that comes to mind for me as a Southeast Asian is to ensure that all groups on campus are being properly represented and having fairness in how they're funded. So how would you ensure if any specific ethnic groups were to feel, say, neglected when it comes to funding, whereas they see their counterparts receiving more funding, how would you deal with that?
I think this is a great question, and I think that's one of the big problems that Peyton mentioned in her spiel. I think that the RSOs that serve people of color and students of color on campus are the most underrepresented. I know in my experience in ESA that I mentioned, we had, especially being a new RSO, we had a really big issue of finding funding for our events. We were really popular on campus, so we had a lot of not only mouths to feed, but students to serve, and that all costs money. We found ourselves really struggling and reaching out to members of the ASU-DUB, applying for the Special Appropriations Fund after doing research, and this led us nowhere. We were still pulling money together as board members when we shouldn't have to do that when these resources are available. I'm seeing other RSOs post on their Instagrams about how they're going on different trips with their RSOs, going on boats and things, and that's amazing, but it's makes me wonder, why can't I have these resources as well? And we began to reach out to ASU-DUB, reach out to SAF, and in these years, we were completely ghosted. Our emails got nowhere. It felt like we were just emailing into the abyss, and it also just created a lack of trust with these entities that are intended to serve us. It almost felt like a slap in the face from all the hard work that we were doing and from the expectations that were before us. So as Director of Diversity Efforts, I think one thing that I would implement is something that Lydia mentioned actually reaching out to these RSOs, going to them instead of waiting for them to come to us. going out and telling them, hey, we have these resources available. Hey, I would like to help you. I know in my experience this year, that's something that has been successful for me. I created a Black RSO-wide group chat for my constituent RSOs as Black Student Commission Director, and this group chat has become really active with me reaching out and saying, hey, we have a lot of ASU opportunities available. Let's work, let's make something happen. I now have students coming up to me asking me, hey, I have this event, I'm not really sure how I should go about it, and I'll help them either finish planning it or direct them to the right ASU funding for them, if not work with them to just fund it myself. So, yeah.
So one thing I mentioned was a student testimony system, and I think that would be really effective for this issue because it will hold all members of the board accountable, and it will give them no excuses to not hear the student concerns. And even if it doesn't reach to me directly, as chair of the JCC, it will reach most likely to one of the commissions, and through that, it will be brought up through JCC meetings, so it will effectively be heard and found a solution to.
I think this question kind of comes down to creating transparency in where funds are being allocated and why there may be gaps and a lack of funds, and potentially advocating to create more funds if need be. I think also kind of auditing and questioning how are these being distributed, what are the qualifications or the kind of basis to which people are getting funds or not being given funds, and giving opportunities also for RSOs to complete these forms and kind of advocate for what they need when they need it, and not just being limited to application windows and other kind of legislative processes that they may not be familiar with.
All right, thank you for the Director of Diversity Efforts and your answers. Now I'm going to ask Francisco to come up and say a few words about voting.
Hi guys, most of you know me. I'm Francisco. If you're an attendee, I'm Francisco. I'm the EAC Outreach Co-Chair. And so voting is April 21st through 23rd, so make sure you put that on your calendar. You can vote at vote.asw.org. If you have not gotten a voter's guide yet, they're in the back near the pizza. And there's a reminder that we have another forum on Wednesday. It's about student policy in the hub, 1:45, 5 to 7. So mark that down. We'll have it with the Student Bar Association and the Evans Student Organization. The next week we have our final forum, the Joint Senates Forum with the Student Senate and the Graduate Professional Student Senate at Hub 215?
No, South Ball.
It is the South Ballroom. Yes, we moved it to it's North Ballroom now, isn't it? Because it's in one of the ballrooms in the Hub. You'll find that on our Instagram if you already aren't following us, or on our website. So thank you guys.
I also want to take this time to highlight how many student leaders we have in here currently. I think this might be one of our more successful forums, and especially in the times that we're living in, I think it's more than important for us to be meeting together, listening to each other's ideas, and organizing together. Community is what's going to get us through the next few years. A quick little 10-minute intermission, grab more food, use the restroom, and we're going to rearrange the room for the next portion of the forum, which will be a round table.